Hi, everybody. My name's Tom Patterson. I'm here to talk to you at the start of the Cyber Talent Week for the United States and really pretty much beyond and around the world. And I'm going to talk to you about the Cyber Moonshots, cyber education goals. And I added progress to the list because the Moonshot group collectively, and it is a whole of nation effort, has really made some really good starting progress around cyber education for its perspectives. And this is hopefully a good update for everyone and a call to action to get involved. So, with that, let me just jump in and get everybody started here. If for those that don't know me, I'm a lifelong security guy. Started working with kinetic security and happily moved into cybersecurity and find it fascinating that at this point in my career, the two are starting to merge back together. But I've written a book on security and really the issue of how you do it around the world called Mapping Security, which if you're interested in sort of taking a world tour on different countries' approaches to cybersecurity, that's what that book is. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been a founder and a CEO and a big venture-backed effort backed by the Carlyle Group and built a company. I've also been an advisor at big companies like IBM and CSC and most recently Unisys as a senior executive in those companies, helping sort of chart a future for cyber that works for everybody, not just shareholders, but all stakeholders, which includes the critical infrastructure communities of the world. I've supported various government efforts, both in the US and abroad. The one down there, if you see on the screen, is pronounced Snake. It started as Snake. It's now the more boring DSAC name that I'm still involved in as an advisor. But this is an area to try and get proactive, take all the intelligence that's out there and really try and help companies. This was around 9/11 when there was a real sea change in terms of defense that really broadened to include critical infrastructure private companies. The NSTAC I'm going to talk to you about today, that is a group that was created by President Reagan back in the 1980s that continues today to advise every sitting president. And the most important work, in my personal humble opinion, that the NSTAC has created is the National Cyber Moonshot. And that is the venue that we're going to speak from today. Here we are in 2022, the beginnings of 2022. We are in the earliest stages, but still into this decade. And this decade is all about change. And I realize the prior decades have also had their changes and challenges. This decade is no more so. And in reality, I think there's a great upside to the change that's coming here. And I see and have focused really on three areas. I want to get you to think about three things when we talk about change now, especially as it relates to cyber education. The first is, as a society, we are really even more reliant on technology today than we ever have been, and we're only going to get more reliant going forward. Up until a few years ago, if your computer wasn't working, you would just turn it off, turn it back on, and hopefully it would be fixed. Somebody else would fix it in a bit. It would reboot, or the internet DNS would fix, or something else would happen, and you could just disconnect. By the end of this decade, there'll be no disconnection. There'll be no big red switch, as we used to call it, on the side of the computer that you can just turn off. You're going to be connected 7/24 for life offerings. You really are going to be reliant on technology to drive. You're going to be reliant to communicate. You're going to be reliant for healthcare. These life-saving, life-important technologies don't come with an off switch. And as we see the changes that are coming, that is a factor that has to be reckoned with. The second is obviously the increased threats. That's what gets all the ink in the newspapers and the blogs. Everyone likes to talk about the threats. They're thrilling. They make great headlines. Sometimes they make great TV shows. And these threats are real. and they're no longer just somebody in their basement, but importantly to note, someone in their basement can actually do a lot of damage. So the increased threats, whether they're coming from uh, state and non-state actors, international crime groups, individual crime groups, terrorist groups. All of these threats are using common technologies. They're sharing, they're helping each other, and they're able to disrupt our technology. And then we have also, to the rescue, these transformational new technologies that are coming in this decade. When we end this decade, it's going to be very different in terms of the direction where we work and how we do it. And I'd like you to think about it not in terms of bits and bytes, but think about it as changing the way we compute, changing the way we communicate, and changing the way we make decisions. These three fundamental aspects of how we use technology will be done in a dramatically different way by the end of this decade. And the plans and programs are being laid right now. And the people that are designing that and the people that are going to be using that need cyber education in a wholly new way. So on the left, you see an update that the White House puts out each year called the Critical and Emerging Technologies List, where they took all of the Moonshot technology recommendations and included them on the list. This is this year's list. It just came out in February of 2022, obviously from the Biden administration, but it was the same under the Trump administration, the same under the beginning, towards the end at the Obama administration. National security really is nonpartisan, especially when it comes to cybersecurity and critical infrastructure protection. And it is really great to work in this field collectively. But I ask you to focus on compute, communicate, and decision, and focus on how you're going to be consuming that, how you're going to be building that, what you're going to be using to do that, because they're going to be very different ways to go do all of those things. And this is actually an uplifting talk. I hope. I'm very optimistic around cyber education, but I did include one slide in here because my job is to look forward. The Moonshot was to look ahead for the country and now advise companies and both products and companies that are at risk, not necessarily just about today's security risks and technologies, but about tomorrow's and where things are headed. And this is where things are headed. There's an ability to intercept and decrypt all of our traffic, all of our digital traffic. That's coming by the end of this decade. The ability to take these new AI systems that we're so proud of, that have been built in a trusted way and gotten out there and to start to take a lot of the load off of humanity, the ability to retrain them to work against us. So same AI, but now working at cross purposes. The ability to disrupt our real-time communications, those following the war overseas, shall we say, depending on when you're watching this. You've seen the ability to disrupt almost all real-time communications, which has put various sides at significant disadvantage. The ability to inject doubt into systems. Think about banking systems and how that works. You trust that your money is there when you want it to be there by seeing numbers on a screen, numbers in an app. If there's doubt injected into the system, whether it's in an ATM or on your app, that changes everything. And the ability to masquerade as anyone, anywhere, using all sorts of new technologies. It used to be just they could make a fake person image. Now they have deep fakes that are being used in Ukraine today to pretend that the president is saying something that they didn't really say. So all of this is happening. Most of it will be done sooner by the end of the decade, but most people agree that this is all going to be in place by the end of this decade. So we have this opportunity, we have this obligation to get behind change and make it work towards our favor instead of focusing on just the negative aspects and what it could do to us. So I mentioned the NSTAC. It was conceived of by President Reagan in 1982, And he obviously had the intelligence community, he had the Defense Department, he had the State Department, he had all sorts of advisors, great advisors in his cabinet, what he used to call the kitchen cabinet. He had all that, but he also was smart enough to realize that the companies that make up America, they're the ones that also should have a voice in this decision. They know things that the government doesn't know, and there was never a way for them to share that in a way that was coordinated and useful. And so he created the NSTAC as a group of 20 or so members, individuals that ran big companies in America, to come together and work on questions that he might pose to them and come back and give a very thoughtful answer direct to the president, not to an undersecretary or to this department or that, but really go directly to the president. Those types of committees are very hard to find in today's government. Everything goes through a process. The NSTAC goes directly to the president, and it's a very unique and wonderful, I believe, and really important, especially now that there's the realization that critical infrastructure is the battlefield going forward. So the NSTAC is there, and the NSTAC was asked a question by President Obama. He said, "Can we make the internet safe and secure for critical infrastructure by 2028?" And that was the question we went off. We were tasked with going off to ponder. That is the group called the National Cyber Moonshot that was formed to try and address that. That I was privileged to work on. And that is the report that was given directly. It was worked through President Trump's administration. It was accepted by President Trump in his third year, and has been picked up by President Biden, picked up in his first 100 days, and going forward. The U.S. Congress has also gotten involved and created the Cyber Solarium Commission, which made similar findings, but he added a lot more detail in terms of actionable steps to our high-level goals. So it's definitely going forward, and it is an important way to look forward for the rest of this decade, what's going to be happening and how we're going to change. And one of the reasons for optimism is these four technology groups. 5G, you've heard about, the ads will tell you that you can download a movie faster, but in reality, it's changing the way we're going to communicate. It's fundamentally changing the way we're going to communicate at work and at home and through the public infrastructure. It is different. It allows peer-to-peer to actually work. Therefore, it requires a new way to think about security in this new way to communicate. On the right-hand side is artificial intelligence and using that sort of for good, in a good way. There's a lot of AI that's been out there to help make sure you buy the right kind of soap. But it hasn't been used enough to help you defend your critical infrastructure, whether it's your home computer, your bank accounts, and your personal information, or if it's a company that's trying to use AI to defend its entire infrastructure. That is a fast and foremost changing technology now. Quantum, was, everyone calls quantum spooky. Because Einstein called it spooky back in the 60s. And it's certainly different. But the concept of quantum computing, the concept of post-quantum encryption and quantum cryptography, very real, happening every day. It's just amazing to watch that industry evolve. It seems like every month there's a new massive breakthrough in capability, both on the computing side and on the security side. Definitely a place for optimism in terms of what computing power is going to be available to us. And finally, identity. It's changing dramatically. The way we identify ourselves. Obviously, we're not going to end this decade the way we started with stupid passwords. But what are we moving to? One factor, two factor, three factor, four factor. That's a loser's game. We're never going to have enough factors that way. The direction that is available, though, with technology is called behavioral biometrics. And that capability is really, really impressive, where it looks at thousands of data points in real time about you, some of which you control, This is your computer, this is your screen, this is your keyboard, this is your hand typing on the keyboard. Those things you control, but also the street light on the corner by your house, or the car that drove down the street randomly. All of these now are going to start to create data points, and all of them are going to feed data into these massive data repositories, and AI is going to process that. You're going to be able to know at a much higher standard whether it's you or not, or your device or not. So that capability is the fourth. And with those four technologies, you can really get optimistic about what's going on the rest of this decade. Because if we get this technology done right, we totally enhance our privacy and security. And if we ignore privacy and security, like has been ignored in the past with new technologies and the rush to get something out, or the importance to make it open to everything, then you're going to have trouble backfitting privacy and security onto it. So the push now is to make sure we fully leverage these four new technologies in a way that enhances our privacy and security. And the good news is that's possible if we have the right people. So the Moonshot is not a technology document. It is not just focused on the tech. We realized if we just focused on the tech as a society, we would fail. We wouldn't be able to make a safe and secure internet for critical infrastructure. But if we focused on these six pillars, all difficult, all equally, all requiring massive change, then we could, in fact, emerge from this decade in a much safer and secure way. So we knew we needed to change the behaviors of users. With everybody talking about whole of nation effort, the user behavior is important. Just like you buckle up for safety when you get into your car, we need to change the risky behaviors of users so that they're aware of when to be more careful and when they don't need to be. We know we need new trusted ecosystems that are coming up around these technologies. No one company, no one country is able to produce everything that's needed in any of those four technologies. So in order to work together, we need to create trusted ecosystems. I'll skip education for a moment, but move to policy. We know that the laws and regulations are counterproductive in many cases. And so that was one of the reasons we were so excited to see Congress launch the National Cyber Solarium project, which really took that to heart and said, okay, what do we need to change and who do we need to have change it? These kinds of policy changes are happening at Congress. They're happening at NIST with regulations and throughout private sector. Privacy, we learned the hard way in the past that you can't retrofit privacy onto a system, but you can build it in. So working with privacy expert groups, privacy experts, we're working to make sure that the people that are building these products and offering these services are taking the privacy concerns of the future into plans today. And then finally, the technology pillar, where we're focused on those four. So that gets us back to the middle, the education pillar. The education pillar is really important. We knew that we couldn't do this. We couldn't be successful as a country with the National Cyber Moonshot without having a lot of sea changes that happened in our education system. So this is the goal of our education pillar. The nation must dramatically increase the availability, quality, and diversity of cybersecurity talent for Cybersecurity Moonshot Initiative to succeed. So look back, availability, quality, and diversity. Availability is, and they're all important, but one without the other isn't going to get us there. There needs to be a lot more cyber trained and educated people. In order to get to that point, we have to really fully leverage diversity. It's not just to be good to minority groups, but in order to hit our goals, we need all of these diverse inputs to create the new cyber educated workforce. And the focus there, and I said this talk is about our goals, but also our progress. The focus there and the groups that have been focusing on fully leveraging diversity or the defense of the country. It's just amazing to see, and the early successes are joyous. So that's our focus on the Moonshot pillar going forward. To that end, and you can play along at home, if you go to the nationalcybermoonshot.com website and click on the education workshop, you'll see the progress that has been made first as a Moonshot team, and then referencing some of the collective progress that the nation and the international community has made in this space just in the last couple of years. The National Cyber Moonshot is an all-volunteer army. We allow help from every group that wants to be constructive and help, and we have a lot going on. So we held a national workshop on this space a couple of years ago, 18 months ago, and want to share with you some of the progress was reported there. First, I need to shout out to my co-host for the workshop, the amazing Bobby Stempfli, who is now at Dell. Before that was at Carnegie Mellon. Before that was at the beginnings of Homeland Security. And just a true national treasure and a strong supporter of cyber education and really getting that right. And so, we would not have had such a successful workshop without Bobby stepping in as the co-lead on that project. So the workshop was, by all accounts, a success. We had we had over 100 attendees and invite-only attendees from across the sector, but we had different parts of the government, not just Department of Education, but Department of Homeland Security, the CISA team and the origins of their cyber education team that were there. We had leadership there. We had the director of CISA at the time, Chris Krebs, there exhorting us collectively on. We had universities. This was sponsored by American University and the team there. But it was a lot of university people, a lot of university thinking, not just 4-year, but 2-year colleges. We had K through 12 represented very strongly. And we had industry that knows how to make a product work in the marketplace. Says, okay, well, what do we need to do to make cyber education work in a much broader way? This was so you see there the cover is, and if you go to the website, you can there's a link there. You can download our after action report from this, so you can actually read all the words. But what you're seeing here is the overview from this is Brandon Wales from CISA, who talked about the success of the workshop, but also the importance that this is the beginning and not the end as a workshop. This is the beginning of getting people involved. And involved we have gotten them. I can't read that small. Hopefully you can pinch it open. So I'm going to run through, there's 6 outcomes that we all agreed were some of the most important outcomes from the workshop. I'm going to use them as the launching point to exhort you all to pick up and keep going. The first one is individual matters, community matters, diversity matters. There hasn't been, we discovered, enough of any of those things, enough of focusing on key individuals and creating regional and local communities and working strongly, aggressively with diversity of all sorts in order to really bring up the level of the cyber workforce. And as we talked through sort of the whys and wherefores of that, we sprinkled in it doesn't work here with the person that says, well, over here, here's how we overcame that. Here's what we're doing. For instance, at the university or not university, the 2-year college in LaGuardia, just outside of New York City, about what they did, where they went out and linked with companies and said, okay, what skills specifically do you need? We're going to teach a diverse group of students exactly that, and then you can have a workforce problem at least in our scale. You can have that solved. It also really sparked, I think, a lot of ideas about people that work in diversity that hadn't worked in cyber, and people that worked in cyber that hadn't thought about diversity. It got them together. So new groups have meshed around there. And if again, if you go to the website, you can see some of the participants' names, some of the key speakers, and follow them. Watch them online, watch their new programs that they've got going. It's really it is a joy to see. Second interesting point from the workshop was to use curiosity and gamification. You're starting to see this really picked up by Jen Easterly, Director Easterly at CISA, who is, quite honestly, it's not a trick. She is a master of the Rubik's Cube. She loves gamification as a method to help educate. And so you're seeing a whole lot more from the government in that space. There've obviously, there have been great strides in gamification for teaching all sorts of things. What we advocated was really to tie that back to cyber education aggressively and determined, with the focus on let's leverage gamification. Uh, the We can't keep expecting people to join an industry when they have a misinterpretation of what that is. If they think they're going to have to wear a hoodie in their mom's basement for the rest of their lives and never see anybody, that's not going to appeal to a vast number of people. Or if they think they have to be a math whiz in order to do it, to play a role, then they might never apply. We need to open up that diversity channel. We need to tap into their natural curiosity by meeting them halfway or more than halfway, and leveraging gamification in order to try and grow. The third area that we picked up was that there is no wrong path. There's a lot of people out there that have the best of intentions, and they're trying what they think is right. And sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it hasn't worked. But in each case, we've started to expose more and more people to what is the cyber opportunity that's out there. I know when I worked with young kids, I did it my way versus other people doing it their way. But I talked to them about, this is a great career, and without the, oh, by the way, and you're helping your nation defend itself. This is a great career, and it's something that everybody can do. I worked with teams that taught Python coding to 8-year-olds. And some of the 8-year-olds were much better than we taught 8 to 16. And some of the 8-year-olds were much better at it than 16-year-olds, because by 16, they'd already thought that they couldn't do it. An 8-year-old thinks they can do anything. And if you make it fun, we did Python programs to write music and let them, they thought they were writing music. And in reality, they were learning how to code Python. There is no wrong path at all. There's a tremendous amount of tools. There's a tremendous amount of great intentions. One of the lessons that we've learned and the outcomes that we've seen is that just raise your hand and say, okay, I'm going to do it this way. I know this. I would need this, this, and this in order to work with me. When you get to that point, then you're going to see a lot more people standing up and saying, oh, I can help with that. And National Cyber Education Week is a great opportunity to meet some of those like-minded folks, to find the different partners that you might want to work with that can get there. I guarantee you, on this, watching this video today and participating with us all week long, there are people out there that have students that don't know how to teach them, or they have a problem. They have jobs they don't know how to fill, or they have a way to teach other stuff, but they don't understand cyber. There's all sorts of the facets of this problem, all watching this video, all watching and participating in this week. So outreach yourself, reach out and grab some of these folks, put yourself out on the line. And the CFF is a great organization, a trusted organization that I truly believe in, that is a place to go meet up and match. Number 4, we found were public-private partnerships. And it's funny because when we wrote this a year and a half ago, public-private partnerships is kind of still a bad words. Most people in Washington sort of hear that as pablum, but they don't think it works because it hadn't worked well. Most public-private partnerships, come together, they write a report, goes on a shelf, and there you have it. But public-private partnerships have come a long way, both in part through the leadership of the new Department of Homeland Security teams and the CISA teams to really understand this. The White House and what Chris Inglis is doing with security, a lot of outreach. The NSA, previously very not outreachy, has gotten very proactive in this space and runs great programs in the teenage years just to teach cyber skills in a gamified way and with lots of prizes and fun and robots. And it's a wonder to see the new public-private partnerships. So if you've tried them before, you see this line and you roll your eyes. I encourage you to unroll your eyes, look again, reach out again. I think you're going to find willing participants that are coming to the table with creativity, with money, with people, with needs, with talent. The public-private partnerships are absolutely, we found a way forward, and a lot of progress has been made even since we had this workshop, Moonshot workshop. All right, number 5, applied technology foundations, and we needed to demystify them. And my example earlier in this talk was about quantum, and I talk about quantum. I went to a cocktail party the other night. And what do? I work with quantum startup companies and help them make products that are more useful and trusted to defend the country. I'm like, oh, quantum. Ooh, I don't know that. Couldn't know that. I ask them what their kids are studying. No, it certainly isn't going to be quantum. That's, we need to demystify this stuff. It's not that scary. And students of all walks of life, and we talked about in the report, we talk about people that are learning is K through gray. Anybody can come in if they have the desire and learn cyber education in a way that helps them and helps the community at large. But it's up to us to demystify. The government still uses acronyms. Technology people still use acronyms. There's still kind of a closed way, a clubby way of talking. I use the word qubit all the time because my quantum friends just think in qubits now, just like we used to think in bits. But when I talk to anybody that's not in that world, I never start and assume that the name and the concept of a qubit is their starting point. You've got to reach out and find the right starting point for these conversations, for these outreaches that you do. I talk about, I like to impedance match, going back to my old electrical engineering studies a long time ago. But you sort of be empathetic, understand where the other side, the other person you're talking to is coming from and what they are thinking, what they have in their mind, and then start there and work up rapidly to what you want. But we definitely agreed we all needed to work better at demystifying the parts of our industry that can be demystified. So wherever there's an acronym, spell it out. Wherever there's a new technology concept, explain it out. Don't make somebody feel dumb or feel like they'll never get it just because we just naturally fall into this lingo. And number 6, and final 6, it comes down to access. We have to make cyber education a national priority. We have to really bring it to the forefront at K through 12. We have to bring it to the forefront at the 2-year institutions. We need to bring it to the forefront at the 4-year institutions and postgraduates. There's at the Moonshot report, we broke down cyber education into 2 big buckets. There's the people that are going to build this secure internet of the future, and the people that are going to need to work on it or use it. And there are 2 different levels of cyber education. We absolutely need more docs and postdocs in there working on these new technology areas from a security perspective. And I'm thrilled to say that since the Moonshot report came out, the National Science Foundation has made hundreds of millions of dollars available to universities that want to do programs around AI, around quantum, around what these technologies are, for the good of the nation. Some of this is basic research, some of this is applied research. All this is new money available to universities and groups to teach at that level. There's also a ton of money coming from Congress in ways that will filter out to the K through 12 and the university systems, 2 and 4 year university systems and colleges. That money is available, but it has to be used the right way. I've still continue to meet too many teachers that say, this wouldn't work in my school, or this wouldn't work in my classroom because, and I have yet to meet a student that told me that. A lot of teachers, a lot of administrators, a lot of, well, it's the government and this needs to change or that needs to change. Well, then let's change it. And that was the mission of the Moonshot. Is if something needed to be changed from the law side or the regulation side, we'll change it, because the goal was just too important. So when you go into a school system, if you want to go in and make a change, you should have confidence that minds are being changed right now. People that start that conversation with "it won't work because" are now teaching exactly what we want them to teach. There's so many great tools out there. COVID has been so horrible for so many for so long, but it has taught us that we can work online, we can teach online, kids can learn online if we do it right. Watching boring video after boring video, and I hope you don't put me in that class, but so be it. But just watching videos or looking at PDFs is not the answer. But teaching, educating, training, mentoring, connecting, teaming, gamifying, all that needs to be accessible to everybody, to a diverse community, much broader than what we're talking about. And it's not just race and dollars diversity. It's diversity of all kinds. Let's reach into every aspect of humanity where we can find compelling reasons to go in and work with them together. We've got to go reach out. They're not going to come to us. It's still, we haven't demystified enough. We haven't spelled it out. We haven't made a path available. It is up to us as the community at large that cares about cyber education, that understands the importance of cyber education, not just to the individual that will now have a great job and a great career and career growth and really kind of limitless growth to anybody that wants to work in the space and put in the time and effort. You're seeing that this is the wonderful time to be involved in cyber education. If you're doing it altruistically, if you're doing it through a nonprofit, if you work as a teacher, which is essentially as a nonprofit, there's great new help for you. If you're a company that's looking for a way to be in this business or already in this business looking to expand, there's great partnerships, public and private partnerships that can come together right now. Focus on these 4 technologies and the sky is the limit. Now, we need a lot of cyber education, and this week is going to cover, there'll be speakers covering all sorts of what I call the basics that need to be done, need to be taught, need to be leveraged. But these 4 technology groups, quantum, and post-quantum encryption, artificial intelligence, using it for good, 5G security, and behavioral biometrics. These are 4 business areas. These are 4 opportunity areas. These are 4 cyber education areas where the sky is absolutely the limit. This decade is going to be through the roof on all these. If you teach your students any of those 4 things from a security perspective, they will have the best careers. And I don't care where they're started from. It doesn't matter to me if they have a college degree or a postdoc degree. If they can learn things in these 4 areas that they're absolutely trainable using the techniques we've talked about and the good hard elbow grease, as my dad used to say, putting it behind it of hardworking men and women, we are absolutely able to create these careers of the future where they are not only good for the individual, but they're good for the community at large. So with that, I will encourage everyone to get involved. When you watch this, there'll be chat sessions, and I will stay available to respond. If you want to download the Moonshot report or the cyber education workshop report, You can go to the nationalcybermoonshot.com website, and in general, wherever you want to get involved, go to your local elementary school and knock on the door and say, hey, how can I help? Work with CFF as a group where there's a connection point for all these different opportunities that are there. I'm thrilled to have started open in the beginning of National Cyber Week here in the United States. Get everybody thinking. I'll be around throughout it. I will be around for the rest of my career, looking to help in cyber education in any way I can. So I hope you follow along, and I hope you stay tuned because there's a lot going on. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Tom. This is an very inspiring and motivating session, and the whole outcome that we could apply to is just immense. And thank you for doing this, and working with us on making sure that the information reaches out. I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion around this in the coming days. I hope the entire report and Tom's expertise becomes the source and resource that we lean on. We don't have to do that homework, but we can lean on that homework to do what we are called upon to do in terms of advancing the cybersecurity capacity building, workforce development, making sure that we take advantage of every resource that's available to us, and also the learning that comes out of this report. And Tom, your experience. So thank you again. Thanks for those that join us live. Thank you for those that will be watching us following this in the next coming days. Please feel free to reach out. Tom has a very accessible. I can vouch for that. Very approachable and a great leader to learn from. Doesn't spare any resource to share and his valuable experience. So thank you, Tom. And it's great to have you. I'm sure we'll be engaged in the subsequent discussion. So with that, we'll come to the conclusion of this broadcast.
Thanks, Val.
Thank you.